Hi everyone, welcome to my review of You Only Live Twice from 1967. So yes, James Bond is back once again, and this time the fifth film in the franchise, of course directed by Lewis Gilbert this time around. So yeah, of course he directed The Spy Who Loved Me, wow, a film that I love, and Moonraker, which is interesting as well. And yes, this is his first directorial outing for the Bond franchise. Of course, he's directed other films as well, one being Alfie, of course, notable one. But yes, he directed 3 Bond films, so this is his first one, and it's again another film with Connery, of course. Is really, for me, I consider this the final, the final true Connery film, as Bond. I don't Diamonds, yes, I'm not going to be trying to be different here and not count it, such as part of the franchise, but it's very much, it's not. It doesn't feel like a Bond film to me. It's very much just, again, he came back, and it doesn't quite feel, at least a true Bond to me in terms of the Connery reign, of course. And for many reasons, I overall consider this the final, really, farewell for Connery, in that sense, for Bond. And yes, of course, once again, spoilers alerts for this review. I will be getting into some plot details, so if you haven't seen this film, as always, come back to it once you have, and I recommend it, of course. With that said, once again, here we are. This film is very, very divisive, just like Thunderball, maybe a bit less so, than Thunderball, but again, it is divisive, and I can see, Goldfinger from Rush of Love, they're the ones that, generally people do at least like these films, if you're a Bond fan especially, but these 2 films here, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, you could see them both at the bottom or near the bottom, and you could also see them, higher on the list, maybe near the top, and it's kind of, they're more divisive in that sense. They're more kind of, all of this is, split generally, and I do, I give, in that sense, I give a thumbs up. Definitely positive, for both of these films. So I wouldn't put them near the bottom at all. But yes, Thunderball, of course, watching that, on the same day as this again, and that was last Saturday. Here we are on a Friday, and yes, just finished watching an hour ago again, on Her Majesty's Secret Service. So yeah, just riding the high really of that, and we'll get to that in a few days. But here we are. This film, as I said, I had a double billing, of course, just this Saturday gone, and what a great day that was for Bond. And yes, this is a film, that I do see flaws in it. I do think it's not one of the best Bonds, I'll say that, but I think it's one of the better Bonds. It's definitely a very, very strong Bond film. Just action film in general. I love this film personally. I definitely see the flaws. I can understand with this one how people would be, not that, not care for it too much, and respond negatively to aspects of the film. Just again compared to, say, Goldfinger from Rush of Love, Dr. No. I can understand how people would maybe not be as interested in this one, and how it would be, maybe, in the kind of near the bottom perhaps, and not one of people's favourite Bonds. I can certainly see this, but I just personally, I love this film. I think I really, really like Thunderball, and I love this one. I'm a big fan of all these Connery films, really, and I think this is really the last kind of true farewell, and it's something that, it's a film that I do kind of now think that Thunderball has the better kind of Connery performance here, than this film. I definitely think this is his, his weakest, you could say, performance of the 5 originals. And I do, of course, as we know, and it's on record, of course, this is really when Connery wasn't, as interested in the role. He's been in different interviews and stuff, and everything, saying that he was just not as happy, in terms of the way that the whole kind of the production and stuff went, and the press, of course, and just the kind of movie making business in this sense. He was obviously just not as into it, and that's fine. I completely understand, the kind of the response from Connery, and stuff, and it is a shame. It's a shame to see this one a little bit, because it's definitely not, kind of his strongest in that sense. And I guess, on this occasion, it's kind of related to the kind of stuff behind the scenes in that sense, and just the general, you know, kind of slightly disinterested nature of Connery, and that's completely, as I say, you know, I respect, you know, understand, you know, Connery. I have great deal of respect for him. So yeah, it's a film that. Having said that, though, I do think, you know, while I don't think it's a mind-blowing kind of performance, I do think it's very, very good, and I think highly enjoyable. You know, once again, it's very hard, you know, for Sean Connery to kind of give a performance that isn't at least enjoyable, at least in my opinion. And I think this is another one that's highly enjoyable. You know, again, it's not the best Bond, but you know, this film, I think, you know, it kind of leads, you know, in many regards, just on this occasion, to something that is actually very relaxed and actually kind of pleasant in a way to see Connery kind of less, you know, kind of. You know, less of a strong presence, but more in a way, I kind of feel a bit of comfort from this film as well, in that sense of the more relaxed, kind of laid back, you know, kind of performance. But at the same time, yes, I do kind of prefer the first four, you know, in that sense to this, you know, the performance. But yes, the basic plot, once again, it is very, very much typical Bond, you know, we'll say that. Involving space shuttles, you know, this craft it's kind of captured this vessel, you know, and of course the Americans believe at first, you know, it's the Russians that have done this, but of course it lands, you know, it goes down in Japan, so the British, of course, suspect something different, you know, and of course, as we know, it is Spectre, so yes, very, very interesting stuff, and one of the things being, you know, very interesting is the fact that this finally, you know, actually, you know, really, really greatly, in my opinion, leads to the first reveal, of course, of Blofeld as a character, at least, you know, on screen, fully seeing Blofeld, his face, and because you did see hints and stuff, and you know, you slightly saw maybe an outline of his face in of course Thunderball, especially, but you know, this is the one where really you get the full-on reveal of Blofeld. You get you know, true dialogue scenes, of course, and yes, played by Donald Pleasence, a great actor in my opinion, who I just love. You know, many films that he worked on. You know, especially The Great Escape. That's the one that really stands out to me. And yes, I think he's great as Blofeld. Maybe not my favourite, you know, interpretation of Blofeld, but I do think while he's not given too much kind of screen time, you know, dialogue perhaps, you know, he does appear, you know, in the final act really, mainly in the film, but despite that, I do really like, you know, this kind of portrayal of Blofeld, and I think the whole kind of, the idea of this, you know, this being in a volcano, and it's the lair, of course, of Blofeld, and this is when it opens up, of course, that whole moment there, and the way that this is treated, the atmosphere, the hints early on of this, I think it's really well built up, and just, you know, when the reveal does happen, I think it's really so well done, and you know, Donald Pleasence gives a really good performance in my opinion. Nothing, you know, there's nothing mind-blowing, I feel, but you know, most of the Blofelds haven't been for me. My favourite, you know, is a different film, but we'll get to that, and I would say this is one of the better, you know, portrayals of Blofeld, and I think the main thing is the kind of the build-up, you know, the reveal and the build-up, you know, to this character, and just the whole kind of the quiet, you know, kind of menacing performance by Donald Pleasence. It really works. Of course, the scar as well. It's very interesting to see in this film, and yeah, it's just a very big departure. You know, I believe from the novel. You know, one of the first ones to really completely go in different directions. You know, this has got a lot of stuff. You know, it's very out there. Quite weird, of course. You know, we must say. But you know, I think nothing, you know, in this film is bad, really, in my opinion. But yes, as I've said before, you know, I think after, you know, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the franchise kind of, you know, went in a different direction. It never, for me personally, regained the consistency. You know, it was always kind of, you know, you could have peaks, of course, but it was more kind of up and down, or, you know, up and for a little bit, and then down again, and, you know, back up again. You know, it's kind of very inconsistent. It has been for me personally since that film in 69, and there's been some Bond films that, you know, I don't care for too much. You know, but these Bonds overall, you know, I'm a big fan of all of them really, and I think this film again is just it's just a very pleasant film in my opinion, and I think yes, it's just great to see Blofeld finally, and I think The final act is my least favourite, really. But you know, again, I do really like the final act. I think there's some great moments in there, and of course, yes, Ken Adam once again, just providing a wonderful, the wonderful sets, of course. It just looks stunning. This film, really. I think the cinematography once again is just beautiful. It's wonderfully shot. I think this is stronger, visuals really than Thunderball. I think, and the music, is wonderful once again. The opening titles, of course, Nancy Sinatra performing, of course, You Only Live Twice, the title theme, and once again, just like all these early Bonds, wonderful, actual title sequence, really beautiful. This is one of the themes of the film, really beauty, and focusing in Japan, really showcases what a wonderful looking place it is, and I think just the shots in this film at times are really stunning, actually, and you've got these wonderful transitions as well. The editing is really great again, and it's just, I think, really just wonderfully directed at times. Nothing stand out, in terms of, again, I don't think this has got too much depth at times, but it's just a very nicely presented film, and I love so much in this film, really. And I think, yes, Lewis Gilbert's, of course, I think his best film for Bond is The Spy Who Loved Me, but this one, I do love it, and I think just in its visuals and its music, of course, and I think the John Barry score to this film, the way that kind of that theme is used, perhaps throughout the film, it's absolutely stunning. And yes, I just love the first act, really, in general. The way that these characters are introduced. You have quite a few characters here, and the new characters, of course, being Tiger Tanaka, for example, probably my favourite. The new characters in this film. Kind of excluding the recurring characters, of course. Moneypenny, M, Q, etc. And they're obviously great once again. But yeah, Tiger Tanaka, of course, played by Tetsurô Tanba, and you've also got Aki, a big character of the film, of course, basically the Bond girl. She's played by Akiko Wakabayashi, and she's really good in this film, I feel, and very good performance. Again, very nice in the way it's presented, and yes, you've got, of course, Mr. Osato as well, and they're some of the main characters in this film that are brought in, of course, and I just love, the kind of charm to this one again, and the kind of the warmth, the comedy, perhaps, to these interactions. I feel that, again, it's a very much, a Bond film that's not taken too seriously this time around. It's got some really pretty insane moments, of course, and especially as you go further into the film, everyone knows the different moments that are very strange in this film. But it's a film that, again, I don't have too much major flaws. Just maybe some of the film doesn't go to that kind of mind-blowing level. Especially the final act. It's very flawed in my opinion. Definitely, it's kind of a bit disappointing, but at the same time, it's got some of the higher points. Like the kind of the actual the action scenes at the end, and also the kind of reveal of Blofeld, and I just love the whole kind of the set here. Ken Adam, of course, once again, and yes, I love the kind of the ending isn't great, but I do love some of the moments. Again, in this final act, it's just overall it is a bit weaker than the previous two acts. But yes, I think this first act in particular is highly enjoyable, and then we get into the middle, of course. And I think in many regards that's my favourite parts. Some of the middle parts, and just seeing these wonderful moments, human moments. I feel exchanges with Bond and other characters, and just this warmth, this kind of charm of these characters teaming up, and one of the big action scenes as well. The kind of the helicopter scene, for example, and it's just a great scene there. That action scene in the air there, and I love that kind of moment. It's such an epic Bond moment, and just Connery once again, just great to see him in the action scenes, and I just love this moment. The Bond theme, of course. The main Bond theme coming on here, and just used in such a great way in these action scenes, and I think you've also got that kind of 007 theme, that kind of recurs in some of these films. It was in Thunderball, first appeared, of course, in From Russia with Love, and that's used just before. You've got where you've got the kind of Q moment here, and he comes onto the field once again. It's just hilarious to see. Again, it's just one of them films that just has these elements in it that I love. about Bond, and you know, it doesn't really do too much wrong in my opinion. You know, in these main essential elements, and it's a sincere film again, I feel, and it does have some flaws and moments that don't work for me. You know, some very, you know, moments, of course, that many would say is just kind of strange and just doesn't work. I would agree with some of these moments. You know, it doesn't you know, kind of it kind of feels a bit off and strange, and you know, it doesn't quite you know, it's not quite perfected at least, but nothing major in terms of the structure to the film, the kind of the enjoyability of it. You know, I think the action is definitely, you know, really good in my opinion, and you know, some great moments. You know, Bond action, and just these wonderful moments in the score really elevate the film. I think Connery, you know, it's just really enjoyable again. I think actually as well, there's a really great action scene very early on. You've got the chairs getting thrown around the room. It's just really, you know, it's hilarious, of course. Very campy moments again. You know, this comedy that this one goes for again. It's very much a silly Bond at times, but you know, it works. It works really well at the same time, and I think the action, you know, at times is really stunning. Other times it's just kind of, you know, really strong. You know, there's nothing, you know, at times it's nothing special. You know, maybe in the final act perhaps, but it's stuff that's just highly enjoyable for me to see, and I love this kind of the main plot of the film. You know, when Blofeld, of course, comes into it and he's kind of mentioned and hinted at. This is when it really gets me kind of excited as a Bond fan. You know, to see this kind of legendary reveal. I love the kind of way in which the characters, some of them are, you know, present in the final act as well. You know, in the action scenes, and this whole kind of lair here in the kind of volcano. It's so well kind of built up, and then the execution is really great at times as well. It's a film that has a real wonderful flow. Actually, as I've said, the editing, you know, the direction in general actually is just very strong here. Quite wonderful at times, and it just has this lovely kind of relaxed kind of feeling in the way that the plot, the narrative kind of progresses. Nothing kind of stand out, you know, wowing in terms of character moments perhaps, really, and apart from maybe the Blofeld kind of reveal there. But you know, this is a film that doesn't kind of, it's not a masterpiece or anything like that in my opinion, at least, but it is kind of this you know, bordering very good, I must say. But overall, I'd say a great Bond film actually, and I do enjoy this quite a bit. You know, I do love this film as a Bond film. It just does so much, you know, that kind of pleases me. It's nothing you know, too bold really, perhaps, but I do love the kind of epic feel, the scope to it, and the way that certain you know, action scenes perhaps, you know, kind of shown in this film, very unique to this film. Yes, you know, this kind of volcano lair, this kind of hideout, of course, is so unique and so kind of epic in the way it's kind of revealed. And I think Blofeld, you know, his appearance in this film is so unique as well. You know, you've got so much in this film that I take that just is not in quite a lot of the Bonds. But at the same time, of course, you know, I will say, you know, there's some stuff that I think it's not necessarily to stand out. You know, kind of moments, characters perhaps mostly aren't great. You know, I think Thunderball, you know, has more depth than this. You know, kind of to the characters even mostly, and there is some, you know, moving moments in You Only Live Twice. Some maybe you know, quite you know, kind of layered moments perhaps, but generally they're not, you know, kind of present, you know, throughout the film too much. And Thunderball, I would say, is more of the kind of deep atmospheric Bond. This is just more enjoyable, a bit more. For me, and I think it's just, you know, it's got overall a better flow. It's more fun. It's more kind of adventurous. It's more you know, epic. You know, I just prefer this film personally. You know, it's again, none of these two films, you know, are definitely you know, not as good as the first three for me. You know, those films I absolutely adore, but this one, you know, I do really think this is a great film. Again, bordering on very good, but it just tips it for the kind of the way in which it's kind of got so many big moments that I kind of I think are, you know, quite significant, you know, in kind of the overall kind of franchise in terms of the Blofeld reveal, and these moments that are just kind of finally they're kind of shown in this film. And yeah, it's just a very pleasing film, as I've said. you know, it just flows wonderfully. It's got a great kind of middle act in particular. I love these moments. You know, some moments that don't work too well, but again, nothing kind of bad in this film really. You know, in terms of the basic elements of a film, you know, and a Bond film really. Yes, it's not always you know, kind of the most investing of films. You know, in terms of characters and stuff, but I think enjoyability is there. It really is. There's so much. You know, and there's so many moments that I just you know, I get the epic chills here. The shiver moments, of course, and the helicopter you know, action sequence, for example. Just these early on sequences as well of action. I really love. On the rooftops perhaps as well early on, and I think the way the action's put together once again is really thrilling, and yeah, it's just the kind of training sequences as well I really loved. Tiger Tanaka I'm a big fan of actually, you know, that character there. The rest of the characters, you know, the new characters aren't given too much depth, you know, and too much really to go with, but it has got some investing moments, you know, definitely, and overall I do, you know, you could say I love this film. It's very much on the border of great and very good, but I think I have to just give it, you know, this kind of this great rating because yes, just for my enjoyment, it just does something for me. It's kind of it's a pleaser. Again, not kind of loads to say about this one. It's kind of it's not one of my top 10 or anything, but it is one that I do, you know, feel really it's a strong Bond, absolutely, and yes. I have to give this film a 90%. You know, of course, it's a film that you know, I do love for most of it. You know, I think it's just you know, it's just one of them Bonds that kind of, it's not a masterpiece. It doesn't kind of move me in the way that some of the Bonds do. It doesn't kind of thrill me constantly to the level of some of the Bonds, but it's definitely a Bond that I do, you know, you could say I love, and I do think it's just so impressive in its, you know, the technical aspects of this one, and just the enjoyability of seeing different moments in the film, and overall, you know, there's not really, say, a stretch of 5 minutes or so that I don't really love too much, apart from in that final act, and you know, there's certain moments that, you know, maybe don't work in the best way, you know, they kind of, you know, they don't work too well maybe, but it's nothing major in terms of, there's nothing that I think is, you know, majorly bad in this film, personally, I don't think, you know, in terms of just a piece of cinema here, but it is just, yeah, it's got its flaws, but it's a film that I do love personally. Again, I can understand, you know, not everyone will take to this film. I can understand how not everyone will love this one. How it's kind of maybe ranked below certain other ones, of course, in the franchise. It's not a film that, you know, again, take itself too seriously. You know, it hasn't got these, you know, kind of great characters really too much. And of course, Connery is just not, as we know, it's not as interested in the role, you know, in my opinion, that kind of on this occasion leads for a performance that isn't as, you know, kind of as great as maybe the previous Bonds, but it is a very enjoyable Bond performance, and you know, really, I think you know, definitely an impressive Bond to essentially you know, go out on. I know, of course, Diamonds Are Forever will exclude Never Say Never Again because that's not, you know, official Bond material, but you know, Diamonds Are Forever, of course, he did appear in. So technically, you know, it's not his last Bond, but it's the last Bond that I really get behind in that sense for Connery, and it's really the one that I consider personally, you know, and at least spiritually, the final, you know, true Bond for Connery, and you know, of course, these spree of films here, you know, such a fan of these mostly, you know, Thunderball and this, I don't think, you know, anything, you know, wow, you know, mind-blowing kind of thing, but I do really like Thunderball, absolutely, and I think this one again, you know, you could say I love this film. It's not one of my top 10 or anything, as I've said, but it's a really, you know, such a wonderful film at times. I think the action is mostly so enjoyable, highly enjoyable. The action, I just think, just seeing Connery, you know, seeing Connery again, and this character and the way these different moments in the film with this character of Bond is just so enjoyable for me, and just a kind of a really such an investing kind of flow to the film. The way that the characters are kind of pairing up with Bond, it's more of a you know, basic maybe perhaps pairing and campiness to certain moments of characters and stuff. And again, it's not got the depth that I feel that even, you know, Thunderball had really at times. The kind of atmosphere, you know, consistently, really. But it's a film that I do prefer personally, and I do think it's just it's kind of a film that I prefer to watch. It's one that I can get so much enjoyment from. You know, from the locations, the music, of course, John Barry. Once again, you know, stunning score. This film, Thunderball, you know, all these films, you know, just they are wonderful in their score, and the way the music is just used to elevate you know, spiritual moments in the film, perhaps, and the moments especially in the middle of the film. This is when it really shines. The kind of the score to the film, and I think yes, it's just very once again, it's just highly pleasant. And Connery, once again, you know, really enjoyable here. Not his best performance in my opinion, but you know, once again, it's not a bad performance by no means in my opinion. Yes, he was less interested here, and things led to this and that, but overall, you know, I do think this is one of the better Bonds. Not one of the, you know, the best, you know, kind of top tier Bonds, but it's, you know, it's the one that, you know, I do think is definitely flawed, and it's nothing, you know, overall nothing too special, but it is just so pleasing to me, and I do love this film really, and yes, there we have it. You Only Live Twice, of course, Bond film. Again, it's very divisive. This is just my personal take on the film. Highly enjoyable Bond for me, and one of the better Bonds, perhaps. Not one of the best, but yes, just a highly enjoyable film, pleasant viewing, and relaxed, but at the same time epic and you know, thrilling, and just a you know, highly fun Bond film for me. And yes, 90% is not, you know, one of the better scores I give to the Bond films, of course. Even many Bond films I think are better than this, but it's not one of the worst either. A really strong Bond once again, and yes, I love it personally. And yes, You Only Live Twice. Next up, of course, is On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and you know, of course, many people know what I think of that film, and you know, you'll have to wait, of course, if you don't know, to kind of wait until my review, of course, and that will come, I guess, so you know, in a few days from this review, and you know, the way. I watched it, of course, tonight, but I would take a few days to kind of get that review up after this review. So yes, I can't wait, of course, to talk about that film. You know, what a film that is, and of course, that'll be next. And yes, I can't wait to, of course, talk about the rest of the franchise. You know, we're kind of heading into the film meat of the franchise, and yes. You know, a sad film in some regards, this one, you know, for the kind of placement and the way it's the final Connery, really, pretty much for me, you know, in terms of this spree of films here, which is sad to see because he's my favourite Bond of all time, you know, this actor, and it's a shame, but, you know, again, it's something that I do cherish, and, you know, for many reasons, that included, I do hold this in high regard. You know, it's quite a special film in some of the, you know, elements, and just the kind of the way it's this kind of this one to cherish. You know, I respond to it quite a bit, and again, not for everyone, but again, you know, it's my personal opinion. I do, you know, I really like this film. You know, I do love this one, and yes, as always, tell me your thoughts. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on this film. Very interested to see the reactions to this one, of course, because it's a very divisive film. But yes, leave your thoughts. Please tell me what you think of this film, and how you would rank it, of course, in this great franchise. So yes, as always, thanks for watching my review.